Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming. The investigation in this case is still ongoing. The information I'm about to provide you right now is purely preliminary and may change as the investigation progresses. At approximately 4:10 this morning, officers were sent on a report of a burglary at the home of Kalauipo Street in Pearl City. The resident met with responding officers outside the home and told them that her ex-boyfriend was inside the house armed with knives. She also reported that he had threatened to shoot co-workers and police officers. Upon arrival, the initial officers heard the suspect yelling that he was not going to go to jail. The crisis negotiation team and the specialized services divisions were notified and deployed to the scene. Multiple attempts to convince the subject to come out were unsuccessful. At approximately 6:30, smoke was observed coming from the bedroom window of the home. About 10 minutes later, the suspect exited the home. Officers outside the residence observed the male armed with 2 knives, at which time he ran next door upstairs in the back balcony, where officers had been previously posted. The suspect grabbed an unattended rifle and was holding it when the officers returned to the balcony. One of the officers fired at the suspect, followed by a second officer who fired from a neighbor's yard, a third officer who fired at the suspect from the bottom of the stairwell. The suspect was pronounced dead at the scene. There were no other injuries were reported. A first-degree burglary and 2 first-degree attempted murder cases have been opened. The officers who discharged their weapons will be placed on administrative leave, as is standard procedure. Two of the officers are assigned to the Specialized Services Division, and one of the officers is from the District 3 Patrol. They have 3, 16, and 18 years of service. Again, this is an ongoing investigation, and we are sharing what we can at this time. Bear in mind that some of this information will change as this investigation continues. There have been reports in the media that smoke canisters were deployed at the scene. This is not correct. No smoke devices or canisters were deployed. We would like to thank the Honolulu Fire Department and the Emergency and Medical Services for their assistance and support. I'll take your questions at this time.
Chief, the implication of what you're saying is that the suspect started the fire. Have you been able to confirm that he started the fire, and how did that happen?
We believe so, but that's part of the investigation that's ongoing.
And then you say he went to a neighboring residence, a residence he was familiar with, to know to go up and find a rifle, or is you? And I know you can't speculate what was in his head, but this was not the residence of the woman who reported the crime. It was a second residence.
That's correct. That's the next door residence, yes.
And it was for sure an active, loaded rifle. Do you have any idea about that?
That's still under investigation.
Can you describe the suspect? Any history, domestic abuse? What can you say about the suspect at this point?
I can't espouse on right now. That information will be forthcoming.
The rifle that was in the neighbor home, that was already at the home? That's a neighbor's rifle, or was that a rifle belonging to one of the team that was stationed there?
That's part of the investigation that's still ongoing.
Do you know for sure it wasn't a rifle that he had obtained in the first residence? Because as I understand, he at some point had accused the woman of having rifles in the home. Do you know for sure that the rifle was already at the other residence and not in the home?
It was already at the other residence. He didn't come out with the rifle. He came out with knives.
And you guys didn't fire until he was seen with the rifle?
That's correct.
Can you confirm he was violating the TRO?
That's my understanding, but still that's all part of the investigation.
Do you know in the past whether there were efforts to do a search warrant on him in the past due to the TRO? And as usual procedure is when someone identifies the potential of weapons at the subject of a TRO that you folks will go to the house. Did you folks ever investigate whether he was armed in regards to the TRO?
I think that's all part of this investigation that will bear out as we continue.
Was anybody at home at the other residence?
They weren't home at the time. We cleared several residents or asked them to relocate during this investigation.
Are you able to identify the suspect at this time?
No, the medical examiner will identify the subject once the autopsy is complete.
Can you say anything about his record?
No, I cannot.
What was the protocol in terms of informing the public about what was going on at the time? Are you folks satisfied that the public was aware enough of what was going on? There was very little information, as usual, kind of coming out of your department. Are you looking too at the communication with the general public in an incident like this where it's so high profile, so out there?
We're taking a look at the information and how it was presented. However, the information that was at the scene and for the local residents and things that were going on in there, that was the priority, and then the scene itself and what the officers were engaged in is the priority, not, and advising the media on what's going on at the current time based on the complexity of the situation.
Were any lessons learned from the Hibiscus Drive fire applied to this situation? Any new tactics, maybe?
That's one of the things we're looking at as, because the fire department was there early on, and their assistance to help us when this when the smoke emitted from the house, and that possibility of another case like Hibiscus where multiple homes are going up in smoke or on fire. And so we're thankful for the Honolulu Fire Department being there.
Did you prevent the firefighters? Were the firefighters there when the fire started, or were they called only when the fire was noticed?
The fire department responded with EMS, which is, I think, a standard protocol. So they were already on scene prior to and then during the fire.
So were they able to respond to the fire immediately upon seeing the smoke, or were they have to hold back while the suspect was still not taken care of?
I believe we had to get a different type of fire equipment there to help with the fire itself. So there was some time in that part. And so the scene was still dynamic as that was going on, yes.
And no one else was injured? There were no injuries at the scene other than to the suspect?
Yeah, that's correct.
So fire responded with EMS initially and then called police upon learning that it was like a barricade situation?
Well, my understanding, the initial officers were called to the scene. The fire and EMS were also coming to the scene. And that when the initial officers tried to engage the suspect to come out with the victim or the female that made the initial call, he refused. At that point, it became a barricaded suspect or situation.
So HFD and HPD responded to the same call?
Yes. Well, that I'm not sure. I have to get more information on that.
But upon the initial, when the officers who first responded, they were responding to a burglary call,
Correct.
right? And so when they realized that the suspect has basically placing himself into the house and saying, "I'm not coming out," that's when SWAT would have been called in, special weapons attacks would come in. And at that point, the responding officers would have just held the perimeter until SWAT came in. Is that a fair description of how that worked?
That's a fair description, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Sorry, last question, Chief. So your officers felt that they were in danger by the fact that he had a rifle. Did he point it at them, or was it just the fact that he had a rifle that led officers to discharge?
That's still part of the investigation that we're looking into, yes.
And there's body cams of all this stuff.
There's not body cams of all that stuff. Certain officers like SSD do not carry, are not issued body worn camera. Our patrol officers are. So there is body worn camera of the patrol officers at the scene that we're going through at this time.
Did you have a drone up?
No, I don't think we had time to put a drone up.
Will you folks release the footage?
What's
The
that?
body cam footage?
I think at some time we'll work, that depends on working with the prosecutor's office and going forward. Okay, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thanks, Chief.